Okay, so now I'm going to be working on problems 5 through 8. Now, as I look at problem 5, I have the square root of 81 divided by the square root of 3. Now, I see the square root of 81, and that's a perfect square, and I could go that route, but I'm actually going to combine this to be 1 square root, 81 divided by 3. And that reduces to the square root of 27. Now from there, I know the square root of 27, that's the same as 9 times 3. So when I break up the square root of 9, pull a 3 out, and my answer is 3 times the square root of 3. Alright, now my next problem is the first one that I'm coming up to that has some variables in it. Now we already know up at the top that it says assume all variables are positive. And I have the square root of 24x squared divided by square root of 32. Excuse me. Now I can go ahead and combine this to be one large square root, 24x squared divided by 32. Now 8 goes into 24 and 32, so I get 3x squared divided by 4. Now here when I look at this one, I see I've got the square root of 4 and I've got an x squared up at the top. That 3 I'm not going to be able to do much with, but what I can do is go ahead and split this back up into 3x squared underneath the top square root and the square root of 4 in the bottom. Now when I do this, cannot do anything with the square root of 3, so that's going to have to stay inside, but I can take the square root of x squared, which is an x, and the square root of 4 is a 2. Now you could have rationalized the denominator first and done this a little bit differently and still gotten the same answer. After everything reduced, you would have x times the square root of 3 divided by 2. Number 7. We've got 6 divided by the square root of 6. Now one important thing to note here is that I cannot make this all under one square root. That only works if the numerator and the denominator has a square root. Here all I can do is rationalize my denominator, and the way I'm going to do that is multiply that whole fraction by an equivalent of 1, which is the square root of 6 divided by the square root of 6. So when I do that, I get 6 times the square root of 6 divided by 6, which will cancel out, and I get the square root of 6 as my final answer. Number 8. I've got 3 over the square root of 8. Now, I could rationalize my denominator the same way I did here, but I actually am a fan of going ahead and reducing as I go. So this is the same as 3 divided by 2 times the square root of 2. Now all I actually have to rationalize is that square root of 2. And the way I do that is by multiplying by the square root of 2 divided by the square root of 2. When I do that, I'm going to get 3 times the square root of 2 in my numerator. I already had a 2 down there, and that's going to be multiplied by this 2 that I got from taking the square root of 2 times the square root of 2. So my final answer is 3 times the square root of 2 over 4. No more reducing that I can do. And there's my final answer.